Wonder where what's her name works that she has to get up early on a Saturday morning.
Well, hold your thought for one moment, folks, Joe, because we've got rain coming. It actually is going to rain, believe it or not, across the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states and in elevated areas in the interior. Eventually, it'll be some snow and perhaps some accumulating snow with that. We've got some heavy rain and thunderstorms going on in the middle. A major Pacific storm is developing, and that's already spreading precipitation into the Pacific Northwest as the pattern changes and becomes much more active over the next couple of weeks. And it's a welcome change because we need rain. And you also need Joe and Joe for the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And if you'd like to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, it's so easy to do. Just shop on the affiliate link of Amazon that is pinned to the top of the chat board or on the description to this podcast. And you just buy your stuff, and Amazon will throw us back a little bit of coin, and we appreciate, of course, and it doesn't cost you anything, by the way. And we appreciate any support that you can give us here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. So, all of a sudden now, I was kind of looking at all the maps today, and I've come to the conclusion that the rubber band that has been stretched for the last 2.5 or so months is about to snap back. And the pattern it looks like it starts to get busy, and that we may have several opportunities for rain and or precipitation, depending on where you're watching us from, over the next 10 days to 2 weeks.
Yes, and Krishnapedia on the chat board says that your fire continues to be amazing. It's still in the same position.
It is. That's because that's because I trained it to be that way. And she's probably still mad at me because I got Wordle in two. Not only did I get Wordle in two today, but on the first word, I had the second, third, fourth, and fifth letter already in the right position. But
Isn't that
anyway,
amazing?
yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it looks like I mean, it's going to take a while to balance the checkbook because we probably need somewhere between 10 and 15 inches in order to get out of this drought situation. But, um, well, the right things are happening to take us on the way.
Well, probably closer to 10. I don't think 15. 15 would be a little bit too much, but from what I've been hearing, Joe, 8, 9, 10 inches, that pretty well is would put an end to the drought and the dry spell. But again, as I mentioned yesterday, this is not what's coming our way for Wednesday night into Thursday. It is not a drought buster. It's
Right.
more like a denter. We're looking for, I think, at least an inch,
Right. But
or let's
just,
say,
just,
let's say
just,
within a half an inch of an inch.
right. But
Either way.
just to clarify, we're going to need probably 10 to 15 inches for over the next 2+ months. So while the deficit is right now sitting at around 10, you have to add the normal rainfall for December and January on that. So we've got to get that rainfall and then the 10 inches on top of it. So that's why I'm
Right,
saying 10 to 15.
right. Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to get it sometime down the road. We always have, and people who have been sending me, little notes on Facebook saying, Has this ever happened before? I've never remember in all of my life how
I
dry it
know.
is." And it has happened in your life. If you go back at least to, as far as I go, 1965, 66, we also had a bit of a drought 20 years ago. That was the last time that New York City declared a drought warning, was about 20 years ago. And it was also in the early 80s. There was a period of dry weather which led to concern about a drought. And so it happens. It's
And
not necessarily a cyclical thing, but every 20, 30, 40 years, you get into these kind of patterns, and we're into one right now.
it's sort of like a natural randomness that occurs. It
Yeah.
might be cyclical, it might not be, but there's also the randomness of events and weather, and that's just the way it is. Not everything is apocalyptic, uh, studio audience, just so you know. And Rich Rothmansky, yes, I did pick up on the fact that there's enough going on in the upper atmosphere with the dynamics that there could be some brief heavy rains, maybe even a rumble or two of thunder Wednesday night, particularly if the point of occlusion, where the occluded front, warm front, and cold front meet, if that comes very close or right overhead, there could be maybe a few rumbles of thunder when it goes by.
Right. In fact, I'm sure we'll show it in a few moments, but SPC actually placed our neck of the woods here in the tri-state area in the area of general thunderstorm possibilities on Wednesday. So, and again, that probably will not be during the day Wednesday, but during the overnight hours and especially after midnight Wednesday into early Thursday, we could be looking at some potentially heavy rainfall. Again, maybe on the order of a half to 1 inch, maybe even in some places in excess of an inch. Joe, that would be the heaviest and most significant rain in this area going back to, get this now, September 29th. That's like 50 days ago.
Right. Tom Contino wants to know what the hell does 700 millibar forcing mean? It's basically, I guess, the simple way to put it is that you have one air mass pushing up into another, and at 700, when we say 700 millibars, we're talking about roughly 10,000 feet. And that's usually a good level to look at. I always like to look at that level to see if there's going to be any kind of convection going on. So that's sort of the easy way to put it. Would you not agree, Mr. Rayo?
I would agree 100%.
Okay, and thanks, Rich, for bringing up the subject that has put so many questions into Tom Contino's mind tonight. Okay, welcome to everybody on the chat board, and to those of you who are watching in the background, and maybe you're new to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Nice of you to be here. We are here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Now we're off on Fridays and Saturdays. However, I mentioned this last night, and I mentioned it. We'll mention it again. It's highly likely we will have a Friday night show because it's going to be a special show Friday night. We're going to be getting together with our former FiOS One News colleagues for a round robin discussion of all sorts of subjects. Some of them that might get us into trouble. You never know. So be sure to mark your calendar down. I'll give you a final um, announcement on this tomorrow, but it looks it's going to be pretty likely that we'll be doing that show on Friday night. So for you new folks, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, turn your notifications on, and like the show. If you like the show, hit the like button and share with your friends, which is always good. All right, shall we?
Surely.
All right. I think I'm going to start with the watches and warnings map because it's been so long since there's been stuff on it. And we do actually have some stuff going on. I'll start in the east and move our way to the west. The red flag warnings are back up for Massachusetts for one more day, because I think with the east wind on Wednesday and the moisture starting to come in from off the ocean, that'll probably temper down any kind of fire risk. But I wouldn't be shocked if more red flag warnings go up tomorrow, given the situation in southern New England and down into through New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania, Long Island, and the Hudson Valley. 200 brush fires, Joe, on Long Island alone, according to Rich Hoffman of News 12.
Wow, well, you and I remember covering the big brush fire or the big fire back in 1995. It was by what, the end of August, early September,
Yes.
out in Suffolk County. That was I mean, large scale
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, that was for the eastern part of the United States. That was pretty big, and particularly for Long Island. I remember it well. I also remember that year we got no Emmy. We won all these awards, but we didn't get any Emmy nominations because the judging city was Los Angeles. So for them, that basically looked like a garbage can fire.
Yes,
Go figure.
exactly.
We have a tornado watch in western Louisiana that's getting whittled away little by little. A couple of flood watches in parts of southeast Louisiana. Various wind advisories in Texas and Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, and the Dakotas. A high wind warning in western and south central South Dakota. We've got some wind advisories in northeastern Minnesota. Winter storm watches for a few counties in northeastern North Dakota. In central North Dakota, it's winter storm warnings. In northwestern North Dakota, it's winter weather advisories. A few of those also in western Wyoming, southern Montana, and a couple of counties in Idaho and also in northern Idaho. And then we have the West, where we've got blizzard warnings up to the east of Seattle and Tacoma. Uh, Seattle and Tacoma are sitting in either wind advisories or high wind warnings, and they've got blizzard warnings up in the mountains to the east. Winter storm warnings go up and down the Cascades and into California and even into the Sierra Nevadas. There's a big Pacific storm, Joe. I wasn't paying too close attention to this, but if we look out, I got the Pacific satellite loop, and I mean, there's just an absolute, if you want to talk about it, what is it, a river of what? What do they call it? An atmospheric river? Okay, is what they call it,
That's what they're calling it now.
right? But that's this, long fire hose jet, and inside that fire hose jet is a developing low. And I don't know if you saw this, but I'm going to bring up the surface map here on the GFS. Uh, so right now, there really isn't much there, but there's a low that starts to develop tonight. It's a 997 low, and it gets down, Joe, to a 940 low. To the west of Washington State. I mean, look at the gradient on that thing. It looks like a hurricane. It's like a hurricane's gradient. Now, it gradually weakens, which they almost always do. They rarely make landfall out there. They come racing toward the coast and then they just kind of turn northward. But this is a real gem of a storm system that's developing. And I'm thinking the satellite pictures tomorrow, the visible satellite pictures of this thing tomorrow should look pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be very impressive. I'm not going to say that it will look like a hurricane, but whenever you get a storm that deep, it's one to watch. This particular, and you're right, they never do seem to. I don't know what it is. It's like a barrier. When you get these major storms in the Pacific, you figure, oh, this is going to really is it going to crash into the Pacific coast and then work its way across the Pacific Northwest or the Northern Plains. Whatever. They never do. I don't know
Yeah.
why that is. It's maybe I
So
just
Yeah, so the pressure basically from where it is right now drops to almost 70 millibars in 24 hours. That's incredible deepening.
it'll be one that but like I said, this is not unusual because it always seems that they get these kind of major offshore coastal storms along the Pacific. And what happens is that the actual storm itself rarely ever makes it onshore. But what does happen is that the associated front, in this case, I guess it'll be an occluded front, will ram into the coastline and bring quite a bit of rainfall. We were talking yesterday about how in Washington State the coastal area during the wintertime always gets hit hard with heavy, showery, rainy conditions, and just over the Cascades on the other side to the east, there's like a rain shadow, and they get some clouds, but that's about it.
Right.
Anyway, this is one of those textbook classic cases of a major Pacific system that will have an impact in one way or another along the Pacific coast of Washington and Oregon over
Right.
the next day.
And Miss Fowlerite is correct. The mountains on the west also probably have a lot to do with the fact that these storms don't often come in full steam ahead. And then what winds up happening is that pieces come in, and then go over the mountains, and eventually they try to do something in one form or another in the east when they get east of the Rockies. But we've got a busy satellite tonight. You got this big swirl. Anytime you see something that looks like a comma, you cringe in fear. Okay, I'm all just kidding. But we do have a strengthening low that is running northward up to Minnesota because we still have some blockiness going on here along the East Coast with this storm system that's just south of now Newfoundland. That's making some eastward progress. So that's going to uh, help the cause here, even though this thing is going to go northward through the Dakotas and kind of just cross the border into southern Canada. After that, all the energy from this is going to get forced southeastward through the Great Lakes and to the northeast and northern mid Atlantic states. We're going to have a new low that's going to form. And then eventually swing up a cold front and an occluded front up the seaboard, bringing rain in for later Wednesday night and through at least part of Thursday. So there's a fair amount of moisture getting involved in all of this. At least this is not going to be another one of these systems, Joe, that you see the front or you see the area of rain to the west, and you're thinking that the Noah's Ark flood is going to come, and then everything just completely dries up. It doesn't appear that we're going to. I'm a little bit concerned that because of the fact that it is a dry pattern, that the models may be overdoing the amount of rain that's coming in. I'm hoping that's not the case. Um, but I mean, I got to believe we're going to pick up at least half an inch to an inch of rain out of this when it moves over.
Right, and especially since you pointed out at the beginning of the show that we may be dealing with what we call the triple point, where the storm system is occluding to maturity. So we have an occluded front, and we also have the cold front, the warm front, and we're all three fronts kind of joined together. That triple point, whenever you get very close to that, that's usually where you get the heaviest rainfall and convection. And as I pointed out, we're in the zone for general thunderstorm or thunder shower activity for late Wednesday night into early Thursday. So don't be surprised if you hear the rumble of thunder in the early hours, the wee hours of the morning on Thursday, as this system rolls on through. Again, the most significant precipitation maker for us, going back all the way to September the 29th. Unbelievable.
Meanwhile, Sarah is gone. So, and hopefully it'll be the last one. Just some remnant clouds in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico and a couple of little balls of convection here and there. And that's just about it. So here's the radar tonight, and a little bit of precip up in northeastern Maine and in New Brunswick. Otherwise, the East Coast is mostly dry, up and down, little patchy showers there showing up in northern West Virginia. I don't even know if that's reaching the ground. But then you've got this developing low in now it looks like it's moved up into eastern Nebraska, and the big arm of showers and thunderstorms that extends from there southward through Missouri, Arkansas, and down into Louisiana. And the severe weather is on the southern tail of that. Meanwhile, we've got steady, heavy rain going on in parts of Wisconsin, um, southwestern Michigan, across the Lake Michigan into Wisconsin, and then continuing back into Minnesota, eastern South Dakota, and then further south down into northern Kansas. So this thing is moving along, and it's all part of the plot that's going to evolve for the East, um, beginning later Wednesday and Wednesday night. Little precip back in eastern Montana, western North Dakota. Looks like that snow on the radar there. And a little bit of a break for now in the Northwest, but more heavy rains and heavy mountain snows will be coming in, oh, excuse me, during the day on Tuesday. Storm Prediction Center tonight, in that slight risk zone in Louisiana. We have a tornado watch box up that's getting whittled away little by little. Marginal risk that pushes all the way up into Iowa and into Nebraska. Now, for tomorrow, the marginal risk is southeast Louisiana, eastern Mississippi, a good chunk of Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle. And you can see the general thunderstorm activity line moves up into Ohio. That would take us right into Wednesday morning. I think the northern part of that may be more later Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning than during the day. And then on day three, which is Wednesday into Thursday morning, marginal risk in the interior part of North and South Carolina. But as Joe pointed out, the general thunderstorm risk line up to Long Island and the lower Hudson Valley, back across Pennsylvania, except the north. I think there's a fair shot. There's enough going on with this big upper low coming down. I mean, the strength of the upper features here is pretty impressive. I think there's a fair chance that there could be a thunderstorm or two in the mix.
Yeah, there certainly will be enough of. I looked at the Omega map, and it actually shows that the area of Omega
Would
or
you like to share that?
atmosphere.
Would you like to show the Omega map to our studio
Yeah,
audience?
yeah, well, Ralph, I'll show it to you.
Uh,
um,
hold on. Oh, there's the share button. They moved it.
they moved
Um,
it.
yeah, they were Zoom's changing things and not telling you. Okay, here you go. Go ahead and show everybody your Omega.
All right. Well, let me just come on. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Let me put that share, get the share button up there, and boom. Actually, I'm in the wrong time frame here. Let me just move things along back to let's say this is 18Z Wednesday. This is this coming Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And whoops, move backwards here. What's wrong with me today? All right, and now this is
How
what
much
I'm
time do you have?
I'll get you for that.
Yeah.
This band that you see of concentric purple contours is what we refer to as omega. This is actually the F-Gen map from Tropical Tidbits. We want to thank Levi Cohen for allowing us to use this and to show it on Joe and Joe. You could see this band basically is associated or affiliated with the next storm system and the associated front. And it's located over in western sections of Pennsylvania. Now, normally we would say, if we use the Alan Casper Pittsburgh rule, that something like this would take about 6 to 8 hours to get to the New York metropolitan area. So this is 7 o'clock on Wednesday evening. And so you would figure that, oh, well, maybe about 1 to 3 in the morning, this is going to be over us, and that may generate, again, convection and maybe some thunderstorm activity. And if we move ahead 6 hours to 2 o'clock in the morning, you can see that this is not quite as tightly put together as it was back at 7 o'clock. This is 1 a.m. now, Thursday morning. Still a lot of omega or a lot of atmospheric energy to deal with, and it's continuing to move on an eastward course toward the tri-state area. We're still out in the clear, so to speak, in terms of any kind of convective weather. But then, as we move ahead to 7 a.m. on Thursday morning, that's all that's left. This little blurb here of energy. So that, as little as there is, that may tend to set off a couple of rumbles of thunder, maybe a flash of lightning, and again maybe some heavy showery rains right around the Thursday morning commute. This will be interesting, Joe, because it's been so long since any commute, morning or evening, has had to deal with any kind of adverse weather. And here now, Thursday morning, folks heading out to work or to school may be confronted by, some large puddles on the roadway, some bursts of heavy rain, again, maybe a flash or two of lightning or a rumble of thunder. So the Thursday morning commute ain't looking all that great right now. But that's what we're looking for, something to put a dent in the drought, and that's pretty much what we're looking for on Thursday morning. And again, this one little area. Let me very quickly move to the European. Let me just see if the European had any sign of any kind of omega. Well, to the north and west, and to the south and east, and in the immediate New York metropolitan area, not much of anything. It seems to be like a break. So, I think it's still worth mentioning the possibility of the lightning and thunder for Thursday morning. Might get that, but again, it looks like a lot of this activity kind of, look at that. Look at the difference between um, this would be 4 a.m. Here's 1 a.m. Thursday, 4 a.m. Thursday, and look at that. By the time it reaches the New York area, it's all but gone, or has dissipated or broken up. So I don't know what to tell you, except to say that I think we're in the running for maybe a little convection on Thursday morning, along with some heavy showery rains. And again, Thursday looks like to be the most active weather day or the most active weather morning that we've had in quite a number of days, quite a number of weeks.
By the way, I would not want to be on the road when the rain starts because, my God, it's probably going to be so darn slippery with, you know, not having rained in all this time with dirt and
Right.
dust and leaves and all the rest of it. So, yeah, it ain't going to be fun. Now, as far as the rainfall amounts are concerned, the guidance has been very consistent on the idea of, let's say, 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a quarter. And that's pretty much what WPC is showing here. Lesser amounts as you go south. Now, these are 7-day rainfall amounts, so this takes us through Monday evening. Probably not much is going to happen. The storm system is going to hang around and have impact on the weather probably into Saturday. Not saying it's going to rain for 3 days, but there's probably going to be some showery rains around Thursday night and particularly during the day on Friday. Uh, Areas in upstate New York, we're talking an inch and a half plus of liquid. There's in elevated areas, there's going to be some accumulating snow risk there. I still, one of the tough things trying to figure a situation like this out is when you're dealing with a really cold, strong upper air storm system like we are in this particular situation, and the colder air is somewhat lacking at the lower levels. It's really tough to figure how much snow could fall. And these are the types of things during this particular time of year where, depending on elevation, somebody could get clobbered with a big snowfall. And it might be localized, but nonetheless, it wouldn't shock me if we hear about some crazy amounts in a few places before this is all done.
Right. A lot of people have not even got it into their mind that there could be some snow, but again, that pool of unseasonably chilly or cold air aloft could help loan itself to, again, as you just alluded to, Joe, some localized snowfalls.
Right. Yes, P PIB PIB 55. Um, uh, Greene County, the Catskills, the higher elevations of the Catskills up into the Adirondacks, yeah, even into uh, northeastern Pennsylvania and some of the higher ups. Would not be a shock to me if we wind up seeing, I don't even want to put a number on it now because I want to get my hands on all the data over the next couple of days to see, what the potential could be. Because the models are going to generate numbers based on how much liquid precip is going to fall, and they're going to give you just basically a flat line number, and you have to try to X out what falls as rain and what really falls as snow, and then put the elevation part into the equation. That is not an easy thing to do. We have not too much precip expected. Once you get into Maryland and Delaware, we're talking about a quarter of an inch or so, maybe a little bit more. And then it tails off even more so in Virginia and North Carolina, down into eastern Georgia. But we do have some Gulf heavy precip. It's from southeast Louisiana into Alabama. This is a large area of an inch and a half to as much as 3 inches over the next 7 days. The 1 inch line pushes up just about to my house in North Georgia. Across the Great Lakes, anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to areas of an inch and a half, and some areas in northern Michigan, and also in uh, eastern Ohio and the higher elevations of western Pennsylvania down into West Virginia might be another place where we could see some accumulating wet snow. And of course, the West being pounded with extremely heavy precip over the next 7 days. That yellow area remains for much of Northern California to Southwest Oregon, and that's 10 to 15 inches of liquid. And the 5 inch plus amounts work their way up through Oregon and even into westernmost Washington. And if you want to look at snow, uh, this is uh, this is through Thursday night, 7 p.m. Thursday, and we're looking at, and again, this is all in the mountains, way up. There's actually a 71 and an 80, a 71 and a 62 print showing up in the mountains to the east of Seattle and Tacoma. actually to the southeast of those mountains, and then also going down into Oregon. So basically, all of the Cascades. You get down into Northern California, you also see some big amounts there. Uh, you know, the yellow areas, we're talking 50 inches plus, even though there's no number there, and heavy snows extending down into the Sierra Nevada mountains, although the snow accumulation numbers there are less than they are up to the north, because the bulk of this storm is really going to hit Oregon and Washington and maybe Northern California. Southern, further south you go, you're more on the fringe. Also seeing some heavy snows translating in parts of the northern Rockies and into a few places in western Wyoming and western Montana. And then we come to the east, where we have those winter storm warnings up for areas in North Dakota. We're seeing looks like anywhere from 6 to as much as 12 there. Also in northwestern Minnesota, in and around Fargo. Fargo has a footprint there in Fargo, North Dakota, near the Minnesota state line. Some patchy snows in northern Michigan. And again, this is through Thursday night. And there's actually a couple of inches being indicated in southwestern PA in the mountains, and then going into the mountains of eastern West Virginia and westernmost Virginia. That light blue that you see is probably just, maybe the odd coating or a little bit more, or just the cheap thrill snow showers that might be occurring. And it was still a little early with regards to putting amounts across parts of upstate New York and into maybe western New England. So again, we'll probably get into all of that for tomorrow. So here's this is the 18Z GFS, and you've got your low going up, gets to about the Canada border, and there's all the rain disappears. And this is Tuesday night. But then that energy gets forced southeastward. You can see all of a sudden there's another low that forms in eastern Michigan, and that intensifies. There's an occluded front. I mean, there's a cold front here, runs down the coast. And when I say the point of occlusion is right over here, where the occluded front, then you've got the warm front. So this is the occluded front up here. Here's the warm front, here's the cold front. So that area, that point where they all meet, if you're near that, or just to the north of that, that's where you could get a burst of heavy precip and sometimes even that rumble or two of thunder. And then, of course, with the upper low sitting by and just rotating around for 2 days during the day on Thursday and Thursday night into Friday, this is when we're likely to see some places getting some heavy wet snow in the interior of upstate New York, western PA, down into West Virginia, even pushing down into western North Carolina for a short time during the day on Friday. And also through all of this, Joe, is the fact that we're going to have a lot of, some cold air coming in. It's going to be enough to actually take temperatures down below average to a small degree as we move through the end of the week and into the weekend.
And those winds on the backlash effect, probably beginning Thursday after the triple point or the series of fronts passes by, the winds are going to gradually rev up, and we'll have some rather windy conditions. What else is new? This has been about the windiest autumn that I could remember in quite a few years. But in any case, we'll be looking for a return to increasingly strong and gusty winds as we move into the upcoming weekend. And yeah, it looks like, especially so later Saturday into Sunday, the wind will be the main weather attraction. Although by then we should be rid of any kind of precipitation and should be getting back more and more to sunshine.
Yeah. That West Coast storm, by the way, if you notice, the low actually stays offshore, as we told you earlier, and you can see the big push of heavy rain and heavy snow that comes in with it. And while everything else is going on in the east, we basically have spent the last 2 months, except for hurricanes, seeing very little activity across the United States. So this is just sort of, you know, feel like I feel like I haven't been on the it's like you haven't been on a horse for a while and then you get back on the saddle. That first, That first few minutes or so is probably a little bit uncomfortable, but suddenly seeing weather systems actually on a weather map is it's a shocking development considering where we've been. Tom Contino, thank you for hitting super chat. Most appreciated. And yes, coin in the stockings for the grandkids. Thank you so much. And Anthony Orr, thank you for hitting super chat as well. By the way, 61 likes so far, Joe Rayo. So if anybody has not hit the like button, because we love getting to 100 likes. So if you haven't hit the like button yet, you do like the show, but by all means, hit the like button.
Hit
So
it.
anyway, yes. So the encouraging thing, longer term, is the fact that this is just not a one-off. We do actually have a solid change in the way things are going to be working across the country, and we are going to see weather systems moving along. There's a weak one early next week, Monday night or Tuesday. It looks like a dying cold front that comes in, and then colder air spreads out from that. And then we got something in the longer range that coming out of all this energy coming into the west, that if you want to, I'm sure the snow weenies must have seen this, Joe, at 240 hours and beyond, a developing low and snow everywhere from Virginia to Maine, a deepening low moving up the coast. Now, I will venture to say that it probably won't look the same on the next run. So enjoy this fantasy while it's there. But I think the takeaway, though, should be the fact that the pattern is going to be more active. We are going to see weather systems starting to come through on a regular basis rather than weeks apart. Here's another one that comes in on this run of the GFS at the beginning of December and goes out, and yet another one that gets ready after that with a 1051 high and bitter cold air coming into Montana, the Dakotas, and Minnesota. So this is a much different kind of a look that we've seen at the end of November and beginning of December than what we've seen in the past couple of years. So it might very well be different this time around. We'll see what holds up over time, but I think everything that I've looked at in terms of the guidance, in terms of some of the long range guidance show, says that things are going to be different this time around.
Well, I should point out though that the it's 270, not 240 hours, 270,
Right.
showing that coastal system. And if you look at that was the 18Z GFS run, and if you looked at the 12Z run 6 hours earlier, there's nothing. There's,
Right. I mean, it right.
grandfather would
And
say,
I understand that, and it probably will be gone in the next run. But I think also, again, the main takeaways are that the pattern is going to be more active. We are going to see colder intrusions of air that are going to be coming in. This is not going to be like we just had. We're not going back to a southeast ridge. We're not going back to temperatures in the 70s. None of that. That's not going to happen. This is a much more dynamic, colder pattern that we're seeing evolving over time. Now in terms of the specifics, yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be on the next run. It's probably not going to be there. It's going to be someplace else. It's going to look a little different, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the pattern is going to get busier and there's going to be things to talk about down the road, right?
absolutely, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay,
What I'm doing right now while you were talking was I was just looking at the 10 millibar um, map
okay.
just to see where the polar vortex uh,
What it's
is doing.
doing?
Yeah, just whether or not it was
You want to
really.
show it?
Well, yeah, I would say if it looked interesting, I would show it, and it does. It looks like actually the models are trying toward the end to stretch it, but let me
All
just
right.
get on.
Well,
Let me get back on the share button
they,
here.
Mr. Cohen is talking about that in some of his tweets lately. And I've seen a few other people that follow the 10 millibar talking about some sort of disruption toward the end of the month. So maybe that's where we're going.
This is uh, this is the view from. Well, this is for a few days ago, actually, November 16th, 6Z, and we're already past that. So let's move forward. And you could see, as I said, why wasn't anything moving? What's going on here? Oh, come on now. Let me see if that'll work. It'll get things going again. Technology. Yes, here we go. And as we move along, here's the polar vortex. And as we move forward here in time, this is for Sunday. Here's Monday, and we get on into um, now we're past Thanksgiving. This is Saturday, November 30th at 1 o'clock Eastern time, Eastern Standard Time. And notice, if you will, now that on that Saturday, the 30th of November, the polar vortex appears to be stretching a bit. And if we go, let's see, can I go any further? Yeah, it continues to stretch, and it looks like maybe now it's trying to displace from its position over the pole. That it looks like it's trying to be, positioned more over northern Canada. This would be as of December the 4th. Now, if you want to, believe a 384-hour prog, that's where the vortex presumably would be on that particular day. And that seems to indicate, or seems to suggest, that perhaps early in December we would be seeing more of a colder airflow moving in to the United States, even though the flow over our neck of the woods on this particular viewpoint is from the southwest. Cold air would be coming on down through western Canada and sweeping around into the plains. And again, if we get a polar vortex reformation, let's say as it continues to stretch down into north central or central Canada, that certainly would be worthy of perhaps bringing in a much colder airflow into our area for the early part of December. Uh, can we say with any certainty or surety that that's going to happen? No, but again, the fact is that we are seeing some signals of a stretching of the polar vortex. You can see as I'm backing up here how circular it is over the polar region, and how, again, in the coming next 1 to 2 weeks, it's going to kind of stretch out down into northern Canada. If it continues to stretch, as I said, we might be seeing some changes more toward colder conditions for the early part of December. We shall see.
Yeah, I've come to to a place with the 10 millibar that forever shows splitting polar vortexes, and they seem to never happen. Or if they do, they just don't happen the way you want them to happen. So I will reserve judgment on where it goes. But on the other hand, it does kind of make sense with everything else I'm seeing at different levels that um, it's going to be different this time around as we head into the month of December as opposed to prior years. But you know, we'll see. It doesn't mean the pattern could change for a week to 10 days and then go back to something that a lot of snow weenies would find awful. So uh, we'll see. Uh, Normally we would do. I have Briller Jeopardy, and normally we would go right to it. But I've got a family issue that I have to take care of, Joe. So nothing serious. So we're gonna say goodnight now, unless you got something else to add.
Okay, no, take
We're
care of
good.
whatever you have to do, and we'll be back again at 7:35 tomorrow night.
Yeah. So everybody, thanks for being here tonight. And we will be back at 7. Not too late to hit the like button, by the way. If you want to take us over 100 likes, they have to do it after the show's done. But nonetheless, um, thanks for being here tonight, folks. And we'll see you tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern time. Nighty night.
Nighty night, folks.